And we are comprehensive. Hello! Hello, everybody. How's it going? As is the way, as I'm waiting for everybody to get here, I'm going to have some of my trademark Caterpillar death cheese. Cheers. It's actually been about a week and a half or 2 weeks since I've had some cheese. Starting to hang out for it a little bit, I have to say. Live streaming and coffee. A little bit of cheese. Hello, Kal-El. Is this a D&D game? You'd think so. Yeah, it looks a little bit like a D&D game. No, it is not. It's just me talking. Tyler, Scott, Wade, Don, Robert, nice to see you. Juju Bear. Well, I'm happy to have you for whatever little time you're here, Juju Bear. Egoed, hello. Now, today I'm going to be talking about live Spelljammer a bit. So I have a bunch of books, which I got from Drive-Thru RPG, including the 3 adventures, plus the box set, which is contained in this hardcover, print on demand. This is not the original print. The Astromundi cluster, which is a main, sort of a more comprehensive campaign setting, and a supplement called the Complete Spacefarer's Handbook, which has special classes, a bit more information on races, organizations such as religious bodies, groups in wild space. So, yeah, very interesting. Yeah, Arthur Kadawa is streaming at the same time, so if anybody's interested in going and visiting the Monster Hood, they should go and check his stream. I think Jordan was just streaming a short while ago, so he's had 2 streams today. One with Sir Lucian, and he's also got a new live stream. Unfortunately, I didn't check it out. You love Spelljammer? I love Spelljammer too. Yes, still in the bathroom, Dragon Ball. This is getting to be a disturbing habit. Nice. Yeah, Spelljammer, and as well as a lot of other second edition titles, are available print on demand from Drive-Thru RPG at very reasonable prices. I mean, if you try and get the original second-hand books, sure, great as a collector, but you know, why would you just get the brand new books from Drive-Thru RPG? Drive-Thru RPG, yeah. Or the DM's Guild. I think DM's Guild's got some print on demand stuff as well. But yeah, that's where I'm getting. That's where I'm restocking my my books. I'm glad it's an acceptable time of day for you, Jan Chivik. It's 11 o'clock in the morning here on a Sunday, which would make it Saturday evening over in the States, I believe. Oh, you just came from Jordan's stream. He's discussing his new campaign. Oh, right. Exactly. It's going to murder your bank account. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. That's definitely a consideration when you were thinking about stocking up with D&D books. I say ration yourself, you know. For sure. Hey, Sam Riser. ¿Cómo estás? Muy bien. There is some work out there, non-official, on 5th edition conversions of Spelljammer. But here's the thing. You really don't need to convert Spelljammer very much. And here's why. Spelljammer is mainly a concept of space travel. The stats and things for Spelljamming space travel doesn't need converting because it hasn't changed at all between editions. Really, the only thing that has changed is the races and classes that you find in Spelljammer, but you can largely ignore a lot of those, or there's the equivalent things in 5th edition which you can use. So, for instance, the fighter class is adaptable enough to include a Corsair, a pirate, that sort of thing. It's all perfectly adaptable. You don't really need to change it that much. And for the space travel and things like that, really, Spelljammer works like this, in a nutshell. When you leave the atmosphere of a planet in D&D, it is assumed, the physics of D&D is that your body, or whatever the object is, carries an envelope of air with it, which is in relation to the mass of the thing which is being taken out. And that's the spatial mass, not the actual weight mass, but just the dimensions of the thing. So if you go out into space, let's say you climb up a wizard's tower, which is packed with smoke powder, you get inside a sphere of force at the top, like a prismatic sphere or something like that. And then the tower is detonated and you get thrown 3 miles up into space, which doesn't kill you in Dungeons and Dragons. Then you're floating through space in that sphere for as long as the magic holds out. And then when that goes book and pops out of existence, then you're covered in a coating of air. So you've actually got air stuck to your body, like you're a mini planet, and it's stuck to your personal gravity. Not only that, but objects have a personal gravity field. So if you're on a great big rock, say the Rock of Brow, for instance, on the top side of the rock from the middle is the upside part of the Rock of Brow, where everybody's moving around in cities and gardens and jungles and things like that, providing its own recycling atmosphere. And then on the underside of the Rock of Brow, everybody's walking around upside down, and that's like the Underdark with caverns and dungeons and things like that down there. So same thing applies to ship combat. Like a ship can be coming in like this with its personal gravity and intersect with another ship, and then so you can find this strange sort of situation where you walk down one ship and then all of a sudden you're walking this way on the other one, and then other people are walking upside down. In play, you just basically flip over the game mat. It makes no real difference in gameplay whatsoever. It's extremely easy to do at the table or in the theatre of the mind, really. You're just like, okay, he's up there. The way that space travel works in D&D is also extremely simple and is based around how D&D works anyway. In wilderness encounters, essentially you travel a certain distance until you have an encounter which is determined by dice rolls. The way this works in the Spelljammer RPG setting is that the space drives that they use from going from A to B only work at full speed when there's no other large objects around. So essentially it's like Star Wars. Heavy gravity fields mess up their space travel, so they need to slow down when they're approaching any other object. So as a dungeon master, of course, that's where you have your encounter locations. That's where you have large space beasts or other vessels or asteroids or something like that the other ship encounters, and it slows down and passes by, and then you have this encounter, and then once you get out of range of it, you can speed up again. If it's something too big, then it's a race to get away from it and navigating as fast as you can until you can get far enough away to kick into Spelljammer speed again, and then you zip off into space. Travel between objects is... Hey, Scorch! Travel between objects is pretty easy. You just basically go from one planet to the next, or one object to the next. And that's about it. The bigger the object, the bigger the ship, the more atmosphere it's got, the more crew it can support, and it's easy enough to use magic and things to replenish atmosphere. It works perfectly in conjunction with, like, while you're inside the crystal spheres and things, all the dimensional travel and the usual magical effects apply. So you can replenish your air, food, and water, and travel around pretty easily. It's when you get out into the phlogiston, you've got to worry about how much atmosphere your ship has. And that's about it. That's really the only sort of survival concern. The Brony D&D video you saw today featured a party defeat the Tarrasque with an iron boulder in 30 minutes. Well, that's somewhat broken. I'm just popping out the chat here so I can see everything. In Spelljammer, do angels... 5 p.m. in Connecticut, nice. In Kellel, in Spelljammer, do angels and celestial beings exist? Is that a plane escape. No, okay, so all of the usual celestial stuff applies inside the spheres. Those are dimensions which are accessed from inside the spheres. Outside of the spheres, it's really hard to get to other dimensions. It's because the phlogiston is like the prime material transitive plane. And it's really hard to portal from there to another plane of existence, and it's really hard to gate in other creatures. In fact, for most beings, it's impossible to dimensionally travel or to summon things from another place. And certain magics don't really work, and divine magic doesn't work because the divine beings are locked off in another plane of existence. So that's a problem. So really, to use divine magic, to summon creatures, to use magic as you're used to, you need to go into a sphere of existence, a planetary sphere, or a solar system sphere, or whatever. In D&D, most of the worlds that are the sort of main setting worlds, like Kryn and Mystara and Athos and Toril, are all Earth-like, very Earth-like planets. But there are very non-Earth-like environments in other spheres of existence within the Phlogiston Sea. So you can experiment with, for instance, the Astromundi cluster is a very old sphere, one of the oldest spheres in existence, that used to have 3 planets orbiting around a star. 2 of the planets smashed into each other, and then so you've got this, it's a very weird environment in there, and there's civilizations which live in there are ancient and also quite sort of cutthroat and piratey, and it's like an archipelago of different island nations and stuff, and it's packed full of adventure. Your brother hasn't died yet. Oh. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So the Rock of Brow's underside is pretty normal, but it does have like an Underdark-ish with the inside. The inside of the Rock of Brow has got like this sort of dungeon feel to it, in a way. It's a big place. It's a big place. Like the Rock of Brow is large enough to have your characters start their life there, and all of their training, and have never left space to go to a planet before. So for them, planets are alien environments. So you have the option in Spelljammer of, like right at the start of the book, they discuss how you use Spelljammer. And they give various options. They say that the most difficult is having existing characters on a planet who then discover that there is life out in space beyond the sky. And how do they get there and what do they do? Because mostly when you've developed those characters over those levels, they're going to be focusing on what's happening on the planet around them and their concerns. And their thoughts of the future will always be getting rich and wealthy or whatever on that planet. Whereas characters that have started off out in space will be thinking of a much more broader sort of cosmopolitan galactic sort of feel to it. There's a lot of different races and things which live out in space in Spelljammer, so it's quite interesting. Hey, I'm glad somebody got that one, HB Hager. Nice to see you, Frederick. How to D&D. Go and check out his channel, everyone. Yeah, so the gods are very hard to contend with in Toril. That's one of the main things that sort of stops the intergalactic empires from taking over worlds and things. They really don't need to. So they can annex Toril. And for the most part, Toril has sort of been very inactive because it's sort of switched over to the more heavy use of portals, and spelljamming sort of fell out of favour. One of the main reasons for that is the Arcane or the Mercane race, who I'm going to be making a video about this week, to give you some idea of how the use of helms and things like that spreads throughout the cosmos, and how it's kind of, they're the linchpin of the Spelljammer accessibility for the characters, because it's very hard to make one of those helms unless you have specific spell knowledge of how to do it, or you're dealing with the Mercane who sell the helms and spelljamming technology to other races, and they're very neutral, so they will deal with anyone. So they'll sell to any particular buyer, and they never get involved in anybody's conflicts. So the Arcane are this weird race of 12-foot tall, blue-skinned, extra-jointed humanoids who are very passive. They don't get involved very much, but they do hire player characters, adventuring parties, to protect them. as they visit worlds. Toril is not flat. Pretty much all of the races that can be intelligent spacefaring races are represented as spacefaring races out in Spelljammer. Spelljammer is very open-ended, sandboxy in many ways. So you can include anything you want. If you want to have civilized goblins out in space, sure, no problem. If you want to have a vessel full of flumps, you can do that. Yeah, it could be a cube. What's the most ludicrous D&D session I've experienced? Oh, there's been many. Let's see. Probably the one where my character got just killed completely outright, viciously and without reason. Right, the Rock of Brawl has got a slum of Krynnish Minotaurs. All sorts. Okay, so I wanted to show you, there's some updates to the prize package. And as you can see behind me, the clue is very obvious today. Very obvious, because I kind of made a mistake, so I needed to correct it somewhat. Okay, so here is the main prize pack here, which is the leather bag. Let me just open this up and show you what's inside. I've treated the leather, so it's got a coating of, well, basically it's like a waxy coating stuff that you use on saddles and things like that to soften it up and protect it, because it is real leather. And in that regard, I have included a cloth and a pot of the this is Liedercreme stuff that it's quite nice smelling, and you basically just apply that if it ever gets dried out or scuffed up or whatever. You'll know when you need to. Okay, so inside we have the dice rolling tray, which is snaps locks on the corners. You've seen these before. Then we have the books. I don't think I showed you these in the last video, did I? So here is the three books. Inside the bag it's actually lined with. Let's put these aside for a second. It's like lined, fabric lined, quite sort of tough and sturdy, like a canvas. And it's got some padded separators on the inside and some zips, some zip pockets for putting electronics and stuff in there. And in the front pocket is the chainmail dice bag, which includes a full set of the, these are the color shift mood dice. Notice the different colors there, and as I hold on to it, you'll see it starts to change color with the heat of my hand. How cool is this? A bit slower because this is a large zinc alloy metal dice, but you can see it's going a blue color. It actually shifts through 3 or 4 different colors until it gets to a luminous blue. There we go. Lovely. So you get a full set of those, 2 large D20, and also the set of prismatic dice that fit nicely in there. And also a leather notebook as well, which I've added into the prize package. It's got a personal message in there from me. It's on the first page. Yeah, that's a handmade book thing. Also, I'm gonna see if I can fit it into the prize package, but either way, it will be winging its way to you. Which is a set of. This is the starter set of Kevin's starter set from Dwarven Forge, which I'm also going to be including into the prize package. So it just keeps growing and growing. These are unpainted, so you'll have to paint these yourself. They've got a magnetic a magnet on the bottom to attach to a metal tray or something, so they don't shift around, and it's a bit hard to see because they're just a matte black. But this is a full set of the Dwarf and Forge starter set of Cavern Terrain. So there you go. Is that wetter chainmail? No, 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 not at all. It is proper metal chainmail though. It's quite very well constructed actually. Okay, the books have got on the cover has got the TMG logo embossed in there. They've got these inserted metal edge protectors on the corners. On the back, it's got the D&D ampersand. They've got a gold lining on the inside cover. And what has been done is essentially the original covers of the books are on the inside of the leather here. The books have been cut from their binding. That horrible glue that they use in the D&D books has been completely replaced. The pages themselves have been sort of sliced into so that the glue binds better with the pages, and then they've been proper bound onto the spine. So yeah, but other than that, they're your regular books. Yeah. I'm not going to sign them because essentially it's got my logo on the front of them anyway. But if the winner does want them signed, they can let me know when they do eventually win, or when somebody figures out how to win. And yeah, there you go. That's the prizes. That's the prize. It's a really nice bag actually. I bought two, one from me. Yeah, I'm kind of restricted on what I can send internationally, so there's some things from Weta which I would love to include, such as like a knife or something like that, but I can't include that in the price package, unfortunately. Just going to repack this. Can you explain gods traveling in the phlogiston from one sphere to another? They don't. They have no need to. They can just move through interdimensional space using portals and things. They don't need to travel between the phlogiston, across the phlogiston. They can literally plane gate from one place to another, which is a legitimate thing that other mortals, humanoids can do as well in D&D. There is really no need to spell jam from one place to another. If you really don't want to, you can just do Stargate SG-1 thing and just gate from one place to another. Of course, teleporting is difficult over vast distances to places you're not aware of. So if you want to explore the cosmos to places which are cut off from travel, then spelljamming is the way to go. Good evening, Otis. Is the chainmail butted, riveted, or welded? Butted, I believe. But I don't expect you're going to take this into combat. It's a dice bag. So it's tough enough, believe me. I've never seen one of these break in my years of gaming experience. I mean, really, what are you going to do? I don't recommend bashing people with your dice bag. Yeah, so the main reason why I'm talking about Spelljammer today is not only am I enthusiastic about doing videos on Spelljammer because I just picked up some books on it, but Chris Perkins just mentioned in a panel discussion that Spelljammer is in the works at Wizards of the Coast. Pretty unequivocally, actually. He said that he can borrow stuff which he can borrow from other projects, and such as Spelljammer. And we do know that Wizards of the Coast has a set schedule, a slowed down schedule of book releases. So I have no idea exactly when Spelljammer is coming out, but so it could be this year, it could be next year. I don't know, but I'm rest assured, really, that Spelljammer is on its way. So I think it's perfectly appropriate to talk about Spelljammer in 5th edition. Mainly for like not talking about the stats of Spelljammer, because we don't really need to worry about the stats across editions, but the lore across editions is very important, and we certainly can talk about it. So I will. Never know what might happen exactly. Yep, Spelljammer is in the works. It's official. In fact, I urge Wizards of the Coast to drop this ludicrous policy of not telling us what official products are in the works, and let us have an expectation. Let us plan our campaigns around it. I know the hype and stuff is your method of doing things, and it certainly seems to have worked with Xandria, but also I think Xandria would have been a best-selling thing anyway because it's got such a wide following. I don't think that's a reflection of the policy of keeping consumers in the dark about what projects are in production. It's kind of ridiculous. Just like tee-hee-hee, cloak and dagger bullshit. It's childish. Yeah, there's this great big object ship in space called the Spelljammer. You can see it in the actual logo. That's the Spelljammer there. So it looks like a great big manta ray curved upwards, with the tail sort of curved up and over, and there's a city on its back. It's that big, and it was constructed by an ancient race. So I'll also be talking about the ancient precursor race in Spelljammer as well in an upcoming video. And they look very much like H.P. Lovecraft's original like Eldar. So they've got a three-sided body, and they sort of stump around. And they had a very powerful empire a long time ago. So yeah, Spelljammer is an option. You can include it or not include it in your campaigns. It doesn't really matter. Space travel itself doesn't even have to come up in D&D. You can just portal from one location to another. It's very easy to just say, oh yeah, you find a scroll that's got a location portal, blah blah blah. It's that easy to go from A to B, to go to whatever setting you want to. Spelljammer itself is just fun. Space travel in Dungeons and Dragons. And as far as I know, there's no alternatives to Spelljammer which are as fun. Some people may say it's ludicrous, blah, 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 but, you know, so is Star Wars. Star Wars is ludicrous. When ships arrive in orbit and you can hear them arrive from down on the ground, it's like, is there an atmosphere in that galaxy? Or something? Why do the X-Wings have to set their S-foils in attack position when they're flying through space to get to the Death Star? Why does that make any difference? What maneuverability are they going to have? Well, there's some sort of atmosphere. Yeah, so they are like the Zorn. Who knows? I mean, they're very ancient, so who knows? Maybe they do have some sort of Genasi version which fully naturalized itself to the plane of Earth. Who can tell? I disagree, Robert. I don't think he would have been an awesome dungeon master at all. Personally, I read the guy's autobiography. Read his a couple of biographies of H.P. Lovecraft. Exactly. Dungeons and Dragons is already ridiculous. Come on, don't come at me with your physics. Star Wars is beautifully ludicrous. I agree. I think I've heard of Fading Suns. It's quite old now, isn't it? Oh, just a reminder, this is a monetized live stream, so you can do super chats and stuff if you want to. Yeah, in Wild Space, everyone can hear you scream. It's true. .40 battleship, yeah. Yeah, in some spheres it can be really hard to gate into there. They're specifically cut off from other spheres of existence. So Eberron is really hard to get to. Kryn, on occasion, is really hard to get to. Athos, I don't even know where Athos is. Old and out of print. Well, you might want to check it and Drive Through RPG. Maybe it's back in print again. Who knows? There also are companies which will print PDFs for you. It's expensive, but they can do it. Oh, that was an interesting thing, Emiliano. The conversation I had on Facebook about there's people who think with a constant narrative in their head, and there's people who don't. I'm one of the people that doesn't have a constant narrative in my head. I don't hear my thoughts like a voice, right? It's just images and things. I can, have conversations with myself if I really want to, but it's a conscious thing. It's not a constant thing. So. You put me in a sensory deprivation chamber and I'm just bored. And one of the things that was really interesting was people who have a narrative in their head constantly, and some people have a voice that's not their own. It's like their mum's voice or something. It's a really weird concept for me, just as it's really weird for them to realize that I don't have that narrative in my head at all. So when I close my eyes, I just see images and things. And I've got a friend who just hears music, just goes through his day with music in his head all the time. So when they deal with animals, they think, okay, so an animal doesn't have the capacity to talk, therefore it doesn't have the capacity to think. Whereas people who don't have that internal narrative realize that cats and dogs think in the same way that they do. With feelings and images and sensory impressions and things like that, but without the narrative going on. So, yeah, that's funny you should mention about H.P. Lovecraft not thinking animals were intelligent. And I've had that sort of those moments where I've been watching a movie or something like that, and the character's sitting there and they've got that talking narrative going on in their head, and I always thought that was just a cinematic thing. I didn't realize people actually did that. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's the usual reaction. Wait, what? No, people don't have conversations in their head? Yeah, that's true. Apparently, the people who do have conversations in their head or hear a voice, which is their thoughts, are more common than people who don't. But it's not. I don't think it's by a huge margin. And I don't think there's actually been a study on it, as far as I can tell. I've never been asked in a survey. Yeah, you'd think it's synesthesia. Synesthesia is a different thing. That's where you literally see colours instead of, as well as hear the sound. So it causes a sensory response. I've got a very good visual imagination, so I can imagine colours and things like that when I'm listening to music, but I don't have to. It's a fascinating topic that most people go through their lives without realizing that people think differently. That it's as stark a difference as it's even more stark a difference than left hand, right hand, right? Somebody who writes with their left hand. What was your first reaction when you saw somebody writing with their left hand? You're like, how do you what? I didn't realize that was a thing. Yeah. Yeah, for most people, I think the replay of their memories is pretty much the same. That they replay like a video of what they saw and heard and stuff. In many cases, I think it's narrowed down to the relevant details, so you don't see everything like a photograph. Some people do replay everything. When I replay what somebody said to me, I get the whole thing. So it's pretty much word for word what somebody said to me. Really, Michael? Oh man, don't cause marital distress just for me, please. I did not know that, Matt. Most lionesses are left-pawed. That's fascinating. Yeah, there's some people who only think in text, and which is strange. Other people have asked me, how do I read? So I read. I've got different modes of reading. I can skim read, which is usually when I'm reading technical texts on like neuroscience and things like that. I'll just be. I just grab all the details, and I'm not obviously hearing the words when I do that. So I can read words without hearing them. You get me? I just see the word and I understand what the meaning of it is. Like, picture the word apple and apple appears next to it, sort of thing. It's the concept of apple. It's not even a picture of an apple. I just understand that word means apple. Lycanthropy in space, yeah, because the lack of moons. So one thing you can do, there's various methods of handling that, which I'll go into in some detail later on. But I actually do need to research that and bring you the information. I don't want to just guess about it. But the problem is, of course, is that you can be within the presence of a moon out in space and trigger that lycanthropy. So, yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, some people can... I guess I could mimic the way that other people would think, because I can sort of create a narrative or create a voice which is talking to me in my head. I can holographically sort of make anything in my head. Quite like, I often get perplexed why people, when they're talking about machines and stuff, don't have an exploded diagram of the machine and all of its parts rotating around in their mind's eye. Some people have this thing called it sounds like non-fantasy or something like that, where they can't picture anything in their head at all. So the woman who was describing this on a YouTube video said that she would be in the presence of her mum and then leave and not be able to remember what her mum's face looked like. She wouldn't be able to picture what her mother's face looked like, or her partner. But she'd be able to instantly recognize them when she saw them. And if they had a different haircut or something, they would instantly know that it was different from the last time they saw them. But they can't tell you what they look like when they're not seeing them. So when they read non-fiction books, because trying to describe an environment or a setting they've never seen before is almost impossible to them. They just don't get it. So you could describe purple soil and pink flowers and stuff, and while I'm explaining that to you, you'll be visualizing them in your head. Some people can't. And they don't often realize this until they're in their 30s, that they're different from other people. So yeah, it's very interesting. So obviously role-playing games, which are purely theatre of the mind for those people, would be pointless, damn near impossible. They just would not get any enjoyment out of it whatsoever. But if you had things all set up on a table for them, they would be able to understand and interact with counters and things. They would just see them as they are, like board game pieces. They wouldn't have that richness of their mental landscape superimposed over top of it. Apples are evil? Magical infections are weird, yeah. You stumped AJ. Yeah. Well, I buy books and stuff like that so I can read them and learn. I will never claim to know everything about Dungeons and Dragons. But however, I will claim that I can find anything in Dungeons and Dragons that you need to know. If it exists in D&D, I'll be able to find it. Thank you, Adrian. Thanks to Wall. Yeah, I particularly enjoy music and making entire cinematic videos in my head when I'm listening to music. So I literally sit down and I find listening to music very energizing. So for me, that's almost like my meditation. It calms my nerves, settles my neural system. It energizes me. Quite often I'll get goosebumps and reactions like that, physical reactions from music, emotional responses, the full gamut. So I really get the 100% benefit from really good music. And one of my profound regrets really is that I haven't gone into a musical career, because I'd love to. You think Dark Sun is around Uranus? Also, if you can't send an item, could do credit for the item's worth? If you can't send an item, could do a credit for the item's worth? Oh, no, I will send all the items. Yeah, I will send the physical products for sure. Otherwise, I would just send cash. And that would be less personal, I think, less cool. Part of the fun of putting this kit together is just what it smells like, what it feels like, the prestige of this. Like, this is my ideal D&D kit. Like, you turn up at the table and put that down and it's like swag. Music is great. I think music is one of the best things that human beings do. Absolutely. I think it's one of the defining traits of humanity. I'd be interested if there's alien species out there that also play music and what that interaction would be. And it's so personal to cultures and groups and individuals and things like that. It's like stepping into their creative mind's eye. And yet it's also kind of formulaic. And when you deviate from the accepted norms, it's discordant and horrible. So, and it's based on mathematics and stuff too. Like mathematical expressions are usually symmetrical. Mathematical expressions are beautiful in music, progressions and stuff. Demons bad, demons and spaceships badass. Yeah. What are my favorite albums and genre? I like complicated melodies and things like that. So I like Nightwish is one of my favorite bands. All the sort of classic stuff that you'd expect a Generation X person to like. Queen and I fairly diverse. What don't I like? I don't really like jazz. And I don't really like the metal music where they scream into the microphone. I don't really enjoy that very much. I like understanding what people are singing about, so I don't really like mumble rap. But I love dubstep, and I love quite a lot of different hip hop artists are also really cool. I've kind of come into hip hop very late, I realise. Although I was alive when it started, I think it's developed a lot more and included a lot more different genres and stuff. I don't like really remixes of stuff unless it's like a really good song that they've improved somehow. Yeah, lots of different things. I like orchestra music as well. I really love the music of James Horner, who did all of the fantasy sort of movie soundtracks. I like game soundtracks from like Diablo and Warhammer and World of Warcraft. I love the soundtrack of Conan the Barbarian and various other movies. Krull is one of my favorites. The draw will be, the puzzle pieces will stop coming at the start of April. So as soon as April begins, people are welcome to try and solve the puzzle. But I think it's around late April, which when it will be unlocked and people will be able to solve the puzzle. So yeah, it's not a draw. It's literally you need to figure it out, and when you figure it out, you figure it out. Don't let the aliens see Justin Bieber. You never know. He might be a primary weapon against the alien hordes. Plants are also animals, really. I imagine at some point plants probably would have developed some sort of more mobile version of themselves. But pretty much as long as there has been plants on the planet, there has been animals which are feeding on the plants. So they've never really had a chance. What's that, Jeremy? Just imagining typing my questions in this dream, I am invisible. Or is it just that every single person in this chat are simply being dicks to me? We may never know. Oh, no, I can see. Some of them get hidden because, like the word dick, for instance, is instantly hidden from the chat. I have to actually enable it to see it. Have you ever looked into the effects of theta waves on music in the brain? Yeah, not really. Not really. Like, well, I've looked into all sorts of different neuroscience things, but yeah, I don't find a lot of personal effect from that sort of thing. Yeah, so the universe is a lot more chaotic, I think, than music would imply. Mathematics is great, but that's part of the way that we impose order on the universe. So it's an anthropomorphic thing. We like to see order and sequence in things because our brains are tied into seeing sequences, because sequences are survival important things. Good evening, P. Ribbon. Yeah, it'll be Lurfin. It'll be interspersed. The Spelljammer stuff will be interspersed with what I'm doing. There'll be the remastered videos, of course, will keep coming at a regular pace. Other videos which I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be completing Volo's Guide to Monsters and Morden Kanan's Tome of Foes. So I'm going to have playlists for those books as well as the A to Z of the core monster manual. So the viewer request videos are going to take a backtrack for a while, which give me a break. I've been doing those 100% for the last year, pretty much. So also I'm looking into playing some games online. I'm not entirely sure whether I will or not. Depends on whether I find the right people. So if you can commit to weekly games that are going to be broadcast and you've got good equipment and things like that, hook up with me in the Discord server and we can have some like interviews, because I will actually interview the people to see if their equipment and sound quality is good, and whether if you can actually commit to a regular game. Because while starting a game and then somebody cutting out because of work changes and stuff like that is a pain in the ass, if you're broadcasting that game and recording them on a YouTube channel, it's really bad. Videos on Pathfinder? Yeah, maybe. I might do some monster videos on Pathfinder, but usually it's just confusing for people. Because if I'm talking about a Pathfinder Minotaur, for instance, and people think I'm talking about a D&D Minotaur, I'd have to keep referencing Pathfinder all through the video, like have a book, having a watermark or something on the video saying Pathfinder content, because it's so close to D&D in many ways. Pathfinder is almost just like, I'd be better off talking about Pathfinder not as the Pathfinder system, but as the world that you can go and visit in 5th edition if you want to, because that would be more relevant to the people who watch my videos. Pathfinder is a tiny percentage of the people who watch my videos. Yes, it will absolutely include a revised Kirin video. I've got a list of all of the videos which need to be remastered, and this is it here. So there's quite a few. Basically includes all of the dragon videos, all of the giant videos, flumps, growls, aboleth, owlbears, bullywugs, gnolls, dryads, flail snails, ghouls, lots of undead, rakshasa, quite a few of the devil videos, drow video needs to be redone, kobolds, medusa, all sorts of stuff. Lizard folk, all of the were creatures, so they all need to be redone. Also, it's been a while since I've done videos on my demon series, so I've still got lots and lots of demons to bring. It's a big list, yeah. I live in big lists. So yeah, those remastered videos will keep coming. Also, a lot of videos which I'm just completing the core books, and Spelljammer videos, and remastering other stuff as well. And of course, custom monsters and monsters from other sources as well. So I still have yet to delve into the Creature Codex, Tome of Beasts, Tome of Horrors, creatures from other settings as well. Yeah, and of course old school stuff from Fiend Folio and other sources from old editions of D&D. Really? The video on the Fire Giant introduced you to Dungeons and Dragons? That's excellent, because I'm quite proud of that video. I think it's one of the best I've ever produced. Hang on, is that the recent Fire Giant video or the old school one that I took down just recently? That's a good question, Michael. How long does it take me to make a video on average? So I will start writing a script in the evening. I will get most of the script done within about 4 or 5 hours of work. And then I will polish off. Usually it's a lot of preparation for writing the script. So I get all of the lore and stuff that I need. I get the books, I get PDFs, I get printouts and things. in my script pile. This here represents a good few months of this is just the scripts and things. There's a few things on research and things that I do. Sometimes I'll print out whole adventures just for 1 or 2 pages. Usually it's just 1 or 2 pages of relevant information. And then the scripts average about 5 to 8 pages long, and I can tell how long the video is going to be by how many pages are involved. Like an 18-minute video or something like that will be about 5 or 6 pages. Sometimes they can be like a 30-minute long video, I think is about the max, and that'll be 8 or 9 pages. Yeah, I try and talk slow, but also I'm mindful of the fact that I don't want people to be sitting around for an entire half hour listening to me talk about something. Thanks, Comic Nut. Shekels, nice. And the hunting around for images takes a significant chunk of time as well. That'll take me about 3 or 4 hours to find all the images and stuff for a video. The editing of the video or the recording of the audio I do in one go. If I make a mistake, then I just pause and then I start again from the sentence that I left off. So when the outtakes for my videos would mainly sound like this. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. They sound like that. I don't even react to making a mistake. I just pause and then carry on. So very boring, unfortunately. And then I do that on Audacity. I then edit the audio and then I put it into the video editor, and then I add the intro track and then the images that go through the video and then the outro track at the end of it. And then I upload to YouTube directly from there. How many pages was the Demogorgon video? I don't think was actually scripted in a traditional way, because I was mostly reading from articles directly for a significant chunk of that, and then I was sort of riffing off that and talking as well. Yeah, so I don't know if I've got the script for the Demogorgon video is not a reflection of how long that video was. But I think my longest ever script was like 12 pages or something like that. Yeah, the Pit Fiend video is coming. The Pit Fiend video also includes, that will include talking about the Dark Eight, for instance, and the hierarchy of the Pit Fiends, because that's where they get kind of organized, a little bit lawful in the chaos of demonkind. Oh, sorry, devilkind. Oh, Demogorgon is not the flower-faced alien Demogorgon, but the original Demogorgon with the 2 heads and the tentacle arms. I could actually do a video on the TV Demogorgon. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it would be almost impossible to put out the 2 videos and do the live stream unless I was doing this full time. So it's thanks to the support of all of you people that I can actually put out 2 videos a week. They have a version. Hi, Acrolis. They have a version of gunpowder called smoke powder, which is only activated with a blessing from the god Gond. Gond is one of the gnomish gods of crafting. So essentially, the gods decided to ban gunpowder. Mainly Gond said, no, we don't want gunpowder, we want smoke powder. So we want this under our control, because otherwise it will be too disruptive. So if you travelled from another world to Toril and tried to use black powder, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't ignite. It would be useless. It would just be sulfur and saltpeter and stuff. If you took smoke powder from the world of Toril and went to another world, it wouldn't work. So there's a problem there if you were like on a spelljamming ship and you went out into the phlogiston as soon as you left wild space, Toril space, or realm space as they call it, your guns would stop working. But it would be easy enough to just buy some black powder just in case and have it on hand. Keep smashing it. Crushing it, as they say. He's not specifically gnomish. He's one of the greater gods of like crafting and stuff, but he's still secondary to Moradin. So Gond wouldn't have been able to have this say so on Black Powder unless Moradin approved, because Moradin's the greater god of that crafting portfolio. Gond is just one of the medium gods, and he's not specific to gnomes, but gnomes certainly do worship him. And he's the chief god of the island of Lantan. Yes, yes, that's what I'm telling you. Yeah, Gond actually looks like a big burly red-headed dude, so he doesn't look gnomish. Unlike Gal Glittergold and those guys. Yeah, just God's will. Exactly, that's how it's explained. Gond says no. Well, also it means that Gond is applicable to more worlds than just the ones that gnomes are prevalent on. And as far as I know, the gnomes of Kryn don't worship Gond. Could be wrong. Yes, a dwarf could worship Gond as well as Moradin. They would never deny the existence of Moradin or never not worship Moradin. Just doesn't happen. Even Duergar, for instance, acknowledge Moradin as the creator of all dwarves. They may not like Moradin, but they would never deny Moradin. You get me? They're pantheons. They're polytheistic. Everyone in D&D is pretty much polytheistic. There are very few monotheists. That's why clerics who are devoted entirely to one god are a little bit weird. You could almost say that all the priests in D&D who this could be controversial. There's a lot of worshippers of pantheons in D&D, but only those who worship one particular god above all others are the clerics. So it could be that that's what differentiates clerics from priests and stuff. Who knows? Hey, William. Sounds like a good plot. Yeah, exactly. What's that, Miller? Ride giant moles? Sure. Quite a few dwarves actually ride steeders, which are giant spiders, which is specifically raised for being riding animals. They can make it through cavern terrain a hell of a lot better than goats and stuff. You can be an atheist in a D&D world. Probably not a pantheist, though. Well, I mean, the problem with those is that the gods' works are so prevalent and so obvious in D&D worlds. So, it's just everywhere. And when you can see divine magic happening, then it's pretty... I mean, they've basically got miracles happening around them all the time. So it's a bit hard to deny that. I know it's a romantic idea that you can certainly include in your games, but in my games, no, there's no atheists or apatheists. St. Patrick's Day is on the way, and the best movie to watch is Walking Ned Divine. Okay, thanks, Robert. I've never actually seen that. We do celebrate St. Patrick's Day a little bit in New Zealand. Exactly the same way Americans do. We, put green food colouring in our beer. That's about it. Wear green shirts at work. What are the monotheistic races in Dungeons and Dragons? Very few and far between. Probably the goblinoids are the closest, coming the closest to being monotheistic, because Maglubiet is a very controlling and dominant god who is basically wiping out the rest of the dwarven pantheon. The Drow are very close to being monotheistic as well, because Lolth is a jealous god who's gotten rid of certainly all of the male deities in their pantheon and gotten rid of quite a few of the female deities as well. So she would be happy if she was the only thing that the Drow worshipped. But she's not. There's still Illustrae and various other gods. in D&D is it possible for a god of misbelieving? Meh, not really. Yeah, probably because there's such it's just because it's just tangible, you know. Like if you wanted to play a fantasy game which had no gods, then it wouldn't be Dungeons and Dragons. That's the thing. I didn't know there was any modern chick tracks. I will happily accept the mantle of being the villain of the fundies who are against D&D. Come at me. I'm not actually that clued up on filters. Thanks, the hills. Thoughts on religious characters worshipping and gaining power from different gods with shared alignments and portfolios. So yeah, the portfolios are shared. There is a hierarchy. So all of the worship that goes towards Gond for construction and artifice, all that trickles up to Moradin as well. So he gains power from the worshippers of Gond as well. Same thing with Deep Chassé. Always have problems with that. Umberly and other ocean gods, their worship sort of trickles up as well. So it's a pecking order where the main gods of any particular portfolio can make blanket lasting changes that affect the entire world. Other gods have to get the say-so of the god up the hierarchy chain. And one interesting thing I saw recently that helped sort of cement it is if every single living being within the sphere of realm space, so the planets of Toril and all the other planets in the realm space sphere, if every living thing died and every thinking thing stopped thinking, like if every type of sentient life in that sphere disappeared, all of the gods in there would disappear as well. They would have no access to that realm because all of the thinking things that supported the outer plane would vanish, and all the sections of that outer plane would be drastically affected and disappear because the concepts in the heads of all those people would stop being there. So the planes in the outer planes, of the planes of imagination and dream, all those imaginations and dreams would disappear. Like a great many voices cried out and were suddenly silenced. Big sections of those outer planes would vanish because gods need worshippers to exist in a way, to have that complexity, to have that they're influenced by the beliefs of other people because they are the planes, the expressions of belief and stuff. They've grown from the astral sea. So in some regards, the outer planes exist in the imaginations inside people's heads. And when you travel to those outer planes, you travel through a medium to go into the thoughts and dreams of living people. Did that just bend your mind a little bit? You're stepping into the dreams of living people. You're becoming a psychic entity that's dispersed and walking around through the hopes and dreams of the collective populace. So you could say when the gods do something, they're borrowing the collective psychic will of every living thing who believes in them to make a change in the world. Deep shekels. Deep Sarshales. Thank you, William. Yeah, it's trippy, right? Because we're so used to thinking of the outer planes as this place that you go to, and we're forgetting the fact that the transitive plane exists to transform you into a different state of being so that you can exist in that place. So you feel yourself like you're a physical entity walking around in that plane, and it's real stuff that you're walking around in. But really, you've turned into a dream. You've turned into a dream, a figment of imagination that is existing and walking around in that place. This shirt is just a shirt that you buy online from another place. Not a specifically a D&D thing. It's just a... hang on, I'll see if I can show you this shirt. It's a dragon. Rawr. On that note, believe it or not, it's almost time for me to go. The gods influence the zeitgeist. Yeah. Oh, actually, you'll hear me talking about the zeitgeist recently. The longer I've been doing D&D and the more people that I talk to and the more sort of tapped into the collective will of the D&D populace, at least expressed through the people who talk to me on a daily basis, the more I realize that there is a zeitgeist of D&D, and that so zeitgeist is the shared mind space, the mental current, the ideas and stuff which are gaining momentum, or the stuff that's on people's minds, or their interests of the populace are getting steered through strange ways. It's almost like there's an upper plane of existence where the greater entity of D&D awareness is turning to different subjects. YouTubers, like, you'll notice that every now and then I'll make a video which seems to be entirely on point and almost directed at you and what's going on in your campaign. Like I've heard your thoughts and I've made the exact video that you want me to make. That's just coincidence, and it's just because of the zeitgeist that I'm picking up on stuff. Like, for instance, I have an interest in Spelljammer because there's been Spelljammer trickling through the works, sort of thing. And a lot of different D&D YouTubers are making videos on Spelljammer and stuff because it's time for Spelljammer. Yeah, and there'll be some pushback from people who are like, we know that Spelljammer is coming, and we didn't like it back then, and we don't like it now, and they'll be very vocal about it. So it may seem like there's a surge of people who don't like Spelljammer, but they're actually a tiny percentage of the silent majority who do want Spelljammer, or at least the option for Spelljammer. Hey, thanks, Robert. I never read the whole Waterdeep book, but I don't think it showed what happened to the Drow community that was devoted to Lolth's daughter. What do you think, AJ? Drow Nightlife District? There is an entire section of the eastern coast, the southern coast along the Great Sea of the continent of Faerun. So the Eastern Shire, and this is Lurin, and just above and to the side is Estegund. And there is a population of Dark Elves that lived in Estegund, and unfortunately they don't live there anymore. But there are actually populations of Dark Elves that didn't go down into the Underdark, or who have come up and are not Drow anymore. It is thought, but not specifically known, that Corellin Larathian essentially okayed a bunch of elven mages to create a mythalar, a mythal, which cursed the entire race of the Dark Elves, so that they found it very uncomfortable to be on the surface, and so it essentially drove them underground. But we know that they can adapt to living on the surface, and over the vast amount of time, 20,000 years or so, some of them come up and live on the surface. So it's quite likely that there's populations of Dark Elves that have, like, for instance, towards the end of the Drizzt novels, the Drow were becoming more involved in Kalimshan and various other cities on the surface of the world, and it was mainly the male Drow of Bregan Diath who were getting more involved in sort of underground crime, or the black market, you could say, or the underground. Oh, that's strangely appropriate for Drow. So that he was looking to establish a power base on the surface so that he could leverage more power and influence underground as well. But obviously their focus has mainly been on the Underdark, and that's where their civilization lies. Bear in mind that the Drow like living underground. They prefer it to living on the surface. They find the surface to be limiting, squalid, too unpredictable, weak, pathetic, etc. Dragon Atheist. The only D&D zeitgeist I can think of is the Far Realm. To me, it trumps everything. A place where demons, devils, and celestial entities fear equally sticks in my mind always. Yeah, so the Far Realm is just the further you go away from the probable. So you could say that there's parallel dimensions, right? In a parallel dimension, the in a parallel dimension, maybe there wasn't a sundering, and so there's a Forgotten Realms which exists in the parallel dimension which never had a sundering, which never had a spell plague. There's another one where the dragons were never defeated by the giants, or they never reached an impasse, and the world of Toril became a blasted wasteland that the gods retreated from, and so now it's, there's wide-scale desertification and things, and so it's a little bit more like Athos. In another further apart one, the two worlds never got sundered, so Abir and Toril coexist in the same existence. In another one, there's never any chance that dragons ever could interbreed with other species, so there was no half dragons whatsoever. In another further apart parallel dimension, the dragon gods never differentiated it into chromatic and metallic dragons. So there's always, all of the dragons are entirely different from each other. Basically just a breed of different mutants. In a further apart dimension, the dragons never actually landed or came to Toril in the first place. So the entire civilization of Toril is the Eyrie. So it's mostly bird people. And humans never actually reached ascendancy and only exist as pets and slave creatures. In a further apart dimension, parallel dimension, that never happened, and the entire planet of Toril is still ruled over by the Ouroboros supercontinent, and the Saruk race or the Batrachi is still completely dominant and has been for the last 40,000 years. So keep going further and further and further and further into weirdness, and you start messing with the fundamental laws of physics and the separation between planes of reality and imagination. That is the far realm. So really, it's not a distant place. It's not an outer realm. It's not an inner realm. It is a parallel realm of reality where the rules of reality are entirely different, where things turned out very, very differently. And that is the outer edge of what is possible in the universe. So it's like you're separated from not just time and space, but also probability. So there's a barrier of probability between different multiverses, like onions, right? And on the very outer edge of that onion is the weirdness, where the laws of physics are very mutable and weird. And that's the barrier that something has to get through in order to go from one multiverse to another. If that makes sense. Do dragons spelljam? Yes. Clockwork dragons are a thing. Yep. A Warforged-like dragon race would be cool. Would be cool. The microverse. Yeah, I like the idea of the microverse. A Spelljammer ship made by hags. That's a cool concept. Ooh, how horrible would that be? I like the idea of orc-built space hulks as well. Why not? And superhuman, hyper-intelligent ogre space marines. Why not? Reality stripped of concept and context. Yeah, so it's a reality which we no longer recognize the laws of physics. I have no idea when Spelljammer is coming out. All I know is that it is officially in the pipeline. Either that or Chris Perkins needs to be tarred and feathered. Spelljammer does sound like a good cocktail. Anybody in the Discord server who wants to go into the tab called The Darkest Booze with the possible cocktail mixes for a Spelljammer cocktail, I will try them. I will make them and try them. Anything that sounds good. William, you are an absolute expert on all things Elven, and I defer to you at all things Elven. At least until I've read all things Elven and I can have a good fact-based debate with you. This allowed the Mayertari Drow to become Dark Elves once again, and Corellon and Relathian claimed the souls as Tel'Quisiah. Oh, really? That's fantastic. I'm going to have to read back up in the chat log. Oh, there we go. After the War of the Spider Queen, Illustrae challenged Lolth to a game of Sava witnessed by Ao. Really? Ao got involved. Winner take all souls of the drow. At the end, Lady Penitent decapitated the avatar of... Oh, damn. Damn. I've got to read The War of the Spider Queen, obviously. Star drinks. Like a pan-galactic gargle blaster. GoFundMe to buy Chris Perkins a chicken suit. No. Oh, in the description link underneath my videos, you will see an invitation link to Discord server. You just need to click that and it will unfold for you. Discord server is essentially just like a separate server that allows you to have a message board to do to post media on it, links to videos and things like that. You can also chat with people via audio and video. So you can actually run games over Discord, and there's bots and things which are usable as well, which are attached, which can do dice rolling and all that sort of stuff. So Discord's really good. So the Far Realm is the phlogiston of various multiverse crystal spheres. Yes. Yes. So the Far Realm is layers of reality which are just as legit and relative and current and existing as the current Primaterial universe, but they just have different laws of physics. So they've developed parallel to the rest of reality. You see, they just start to diverge and create different spheres and different layers of different probabilities. So it's a dimensional state. Dimensions allow things to fit into other things. The more dimensions they have, the more they can fit into things and travel between things. Yeah, Spelljammer is great. Thanks, Danchko. All right, everybody, time for me to go. I've got videos to make, things to do. I will catch you all next week, same time as this stream. So for me in New Zealand, it's 11. I'll be starting at 11 a.m. and going till 12 p.m. or just past lunchtime. For those of you who are over in the States, it's usually around like 5 p.m. I think it is on a Saturday. Depends on where in the world you are. So catch you later, everybody.